It doesn't seem like there is a widespread definition of mental illness, but one definition that I would advance is that a mentally ill person is somebody who thinks the world is supposed to revolve around them, their needs, their thoughts, and that they are the most important person. Taken from this vantage point, the personality disorders, like narcissistic personality disorder or Machiavellianism, the dark triad, begin to make sense in a certain context, which is the manipulative power ploys individuals can use to maintain themselves in position of importance. Positions which, for healthy people, should be obtained by deeds of service, by being good to other people, helping people's lives be better, whether it's by new inventions or even just listening to people. There are so many ways to contribute. And I think this is what separates mentally healthy from mentally ill people. Mentally ill people think that they need to be the center of the world just by virtue of existing, and get very angry when they feel like the world doesn't give them the respect that they deserve or the admiration that they deserve. While mentally healthy people know that they're not the center of the world, and that whatever admiration, love, or respect they get needs to be earned. I was just fiddling with my video camera, trying to figure out how to stop, but temporarily pause. So you can tell that, I might be one of those people who has too much of a feeling of self-importance, thinking that she can do videos while she hasn't even figured out the technicalities yet. But it's important to be aware of that, and I am. Now, where things become really interesting is where entire groups of people band together into protected classes to demand respect. And in that case, it's this is where this gets interesting, because mental illness is usually a concept reserved for an individual. And as soon as it's a group movement, it's not mental illness. It's obvious that it's something else. But it's nevertheless a power ploy, one which, when employed to excess, will get a political backlash. In any case, it's pretty safe to say that at least when an individual ventures beyond the narrow boundaries of the self and joins a movement, then no matter how unreasonable the demands, one does step outside of mental illness, which shows how important it is to, in order to comprehend mental illness, to go outside of the concept of just an individual. Now, also what becomes really interesting is when one speaks of groups of people, and sometimes maybe ethnic groups, can there be, well, obviously you can't talk about mental illness, but can there be ways of judging, or is everybody equal no matter what their level of development? whether it's scientific, technological, or intellectual development? Should they all be considered equal? I'm unfortunately and obviously stepping outside of rigorous intellectual boundaries here because I could be probably justifiably accused of confusing the two concepts and trying to make a parallel between individual mental illness and something that I can't yet define, which is at a societal level. So, according to the World Health Organization, a mental disorder is characterized by clinically significant disturbance in an individual's cognition, emotional regulation, or behavior. It is usually associated with distress or impairment in important areas of functioning. There are many different types of mental disorders. Mental disorders may also be referred to as mental health conditions. The latter is a broader term covering mental disorders, psychosocial disabilities, and other mental states associated with significant distress, impairment in functioning, or risk of self-harm. This fact sheet focuses on mental disorders, and the fact sheet says that 1 in every 8 people in the world live with a mental disorder. I wonder how they determined that. Mental disorders involve significant disturbances in thinking, emotional regulation, or behavior. Okay. There are many different types of mental disorders, but they're not very clear in what those would be. Supposedly effective prevention and treatment options exist. And most people don't have access to effective care. What is effective care? So what would the effective treatments be? Would that be medications? Because this is what is usually offered. The other solution is psychotherapy, but it doesn't seem like psychotherapy is very effective either. Well, at least it doesn't do the harm that medications can do. But seriously, if one takes the definition of Jordan Peterson, which is, I think, having problems integrating information, which also could be another way of saying stupidity, how would you be able to cure stupidity with medication or lack of information? Okay, let's not. I'm sure there'll be a huge backlash if I say stupidity. But okay, let's say we use the notion of lack of information. Well, how is lack of information cured by medications? It would seem to me that lack of information is better cured by reading, being informed, getting an education. I mean, what do you think? Am I wrong? Please let me know in the comments. So then one starts to wonder, why are medications prescribed for what could be seen as lack of information? And then one realizes that it's based on a medical model, which actually the World Health Organization does endorse, and so does the entire medical field. Well, the medical field says that this is some kind of organic problem. Mental illness is an organic problem. And therefore, as an organic problem, it can be cured with medications. And I would say that this is not borne out when one starts observing reality. And the usage of medications to treat mental illness, I mean, the results have been abysmal. People, basically what makes people mentally ill is the quote-unquote medications, which are pretty much the equivalent of street drugs, except that they can be given with a prescription and reimbursed by insurance. And then one realizes that it's actually the pharma cabal. It works. It works because they make money. The doctors make money. The pharmaceutical companies make money. And everybody's happy. Except the patients, who don't realize how they have been hoodwinked and scammed and usually end up with their lives destroyed, and they lose friends and family, and sometimes even the lives of those around them get destroyed. This is why it's very important to have an objective criterion to define mental illness, because indeed, if it's identified as just a disturbance of mood, well, you could use any street drug. Sigmund Freud recommended cocaine, and basically the modern equivalents with a prescription pad just disable the brain, make it dysfunctional, and make people cuckoo. But they're cuckoo, but they're happy. So if one just uses mood as a criterion, then everything's fine, right? But the World Health Organization also includes social functioning. Now, I don't see how any social functioning can be improved by taking drugs which alter brain functioning. And if you think I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. But I don't see the logic, meaning the logic behind the statement that drugs can improve functioning. How? They can improve mood. I think that is undisputable. And even that is temporary, though, because there are crashes, just like with street drugs. But they definitely don't improve functioning. And like I said already, there is a trail of broken lives, that of the mental health patient and usually his family, his or her family behind them. And friends, but friends don't care so much. They can always leave. I think the real reason why we don't hear much about this, why there aren't that many opinions like mine, is because there's no money to be made. If you espouse the opinion that mentally ill people need medications and therapy, well then there's money to be made in that. You know, there are drugs to be sold. Doctors get consultation fees, therapists get consultation fees, you know. But at least by the criterion of, by the Hippocratic Oath of first and foremost do no harm, the therapists are not the worst offenders. The worst offenders are the psychiatrists. But the problem is that if one wants to say the emperor has no clothes, well, there's no money in saying that. I'm not making money. But the people peddling harmful snake oil are making money. Which is why you'll probably see this continue for a while and destroy many lives.